Hi friends, it's Heather with Running with Scissors, and today we are making door hanger number 17. It's your February door hanger of your Dashing Doors subscription club. That's February 2024, and it's number 17. And it's this cute little guy here. All right, let's get started. All right, so let's see what all you should have for painting this guy, and let's get started on him. All right, so as always, you have a printed picture. This one is not the printed. We'll put that in after we do this today. And then you'll have the paint colors that we end up using. Now, sometimes I change throughout the painting and I will add them into that sheet. So even though when I start this video, I might tell you something different than what's on that sheet, you're going to want to make sure that you follow what's on that sheet. But once again, these are just what I'm going to use. You can use any paint colors that you want to use. That's totally up to you. Don't limit yourself to the colors that I have decided to use. I don't think we'll be using black in this one, so I always say white, black, but I don't think this one will be using any black. So you're going to need white, and any white, any way is fine. I believe that I'm going to use Apple Barrel New Shamrock, Apple Barrel Caribbean, Apple Barrel Pink Parfait, Deco Art Red Spice. This red spice is more like a dark orange. So I want to do stripes on the carrots in an alternate color. So I think that's what I'm going to do. This is Apple Barrel Harvest Orange and Apple Barrel Country Gray. Now, you don't need to make sure that you have all these colors. Any pink, any green, any orange. You can make an orange variant by adding some brown to your current orange. You can make gray with white and black. And this Caribbean blue is just like a green blue. So you could always mix up a green blue color. All right. You'll have a couple of zip ties for your ribbons, and these are the ribbons I selected for this. And then you'll also have a length of rat tail or satin cording. I went with the satin cording because on this particular door hanger, I couldn't put holes too far apart because the only bulk thing at the top was the tail. So I went with a satin cording instead of a jute. I had initially thought I would do a wire, but wires are hard to bend if you don't have the right tools, and I didn't want you guys stuck without the correct tools. So that's why I went with this. All right, so you should have 2 cups of water to rinse your brushes, a good selection of brushes, Posca pens, and you'll need scissors at the end. And of course, you should have a paper plate to put your colors on. All right, so the first thing that I am going to do is some paper towel as well to rinse to dry your brushes off on, and baby wipes. Baby wipes are always handy. So this time around, usually you see me flood the entire thing with white paint. I'm not going to do that this time. Instead of flooding the entire thing with white, I am going to just paint within the lines. I know it's crazy, but we're going to do that. And because gray is my center color and it's my biggest color, I'm going to go ahead and paint my gray first. Now, the center of my bunny ears are going to be white, but I'm just going to go ahead and paint them gray for right now, and I will paint them white later. Now remember, if you don't like the color gray you have, you can lighten it up with some white. Or if you don't have gray, you can make it with some black and white. All right, I am using a number 12 angle brush, and that's by my favorite brush maker, which I can't pronounce, Bomia, maybe. And my brushes are brand new because we are like 3 days out of Christmas right now. Now we might need 2 coats on this. Yes, we're definitely going to need 2 coats. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and work our way around the outside edges of our bunny here up to our carrots. And then we'll come back in and we can use a wide flat brush, like a 1-inch. I don't believe our 1-inch flats have numbers on them. I'd say they're probably about a 15 if they don't call them by a half. I don't understand the brush sizing thing. I never did. Sorry guys, that's one thing I did not discover. Oops. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just going around where it meets other things, like the carrots. And I'm kind of just like going around the outside because I'm going to fill this in with a wide brush, but here I've got my border boundary. So you can work your way around it like this. And then you'll be able just to go ahead and flood the entire thing without worrying. Now, one thing I didn't talk about in the last video, if you're watching these in order here, you turn your piece around where you need it to paint it the easiest. I try to keep an eye on my screen up above to make sure that I'm not going out of frame. But sometimes I'm thinking about you, but I'm not thinking about how it comes across. And so my apologies if I ever get out of frame and you can't see what I'm doing. But you definitely have to turn your work so you can access it the easiest. All right, so there's my outline of where I need to stay away from other colors. And I'm going to work just the rest of the paint out of my brush onto my wood here. And then I'm going to rinse this brush because I won't be using this brush for a while. Remember, do a double rinse and then wipe your brush, dry your brush off and leave it flat to dry, okay? I'm going to switch over to this wide white brush, or wide flat brush, and I'm going to fill this in. It's going to take 2 coats, definitely. Make sure your first coat dries very well. And what I was trying to tell you was to make sure you pick up any bumpers. That's the edges of the paint, like the rows that your brush will leave behind. So make sure you pick those up, or else they'll dry like that, okay? So let's give this 2 coats. Let each coat dry in between. I am just going to go right over his face and right over his ears. I will speed this video all up, and hopefully it will only take me about a minute to put on 2 coats. So you can pause it and go ahead and put both of your coats on and then come back, and it will only take a minute to go through the video. All right, we'll see you back here in just a little bit. Okay, our first coat's dry, so we're going to start our second coat. Okay, our second coat is dry. Now, if you feel like you need a third coat, go ahead and do that before you move on to the next step. I probably could use a third coat, but I'm electing to not put one on. So the next thing that we are going to do is we're going to paint the inside of his ears. Now, I want the inside of his ears to be white with that little Caribbean blue stripe. So I'm going to go ahead and just put some white paint on my paper plate. And I'm going to use a pretty small angle brush. Let's go with a number, no, that's too big. Let's go with a half. We're going to go with a half. Now my brushes are brand new. this particular brand of brush comes, the bristles come glued. It's a water soluble glue. So all you have to do is dip it in water for like 3 seconds and then rinse it in a separate thing of water, and those bristles will be released. Okay, I'm going to paint the insides of his ear. Now this may need 2 coats. Now remember, you don't have to be perfect up to that score line. We are going to come back and outline everything with a paint marker. So don't stress it too much, okay? It does not have to be perfect. All right, and we're going to wait for that to dry, and we're going to put on 2 coats. While we wait for that to dry, we're just going to move on. So I'm going to go ahead and just rinse my brush off. And I'm going to move on to my carrots because my carrots are going to need a couple of coats as well. So I'm using the Harvest Orange for the first coats of my carrots. And I'm going to use another angle brush. And this one is a 1/4 inch angle brush. A 1/4 inch. Now, orange covers hard, okay? So you can put a foundation of white underneath the orange if you want to, or you can just do multiple coats. We would typically have a foundation of orange underneath it. We did not do it this time because we were painting our rabbit gray. All right, while we wait for our first coat of our orange to dry, we're going to go ahead and put our second coat on our white. And now we're going to move back over to our orange. Second coat on your orange. Your orange might need a third coat. You decide. Okay. So that's 2 coats on our carrots and on the center of our ears. And let's move on to the tail. The tail and are there ears? Actually, let's do the tops of the carrots because while I have my blue out, I want to do the stripes in my ears. So let's move on to the top of our carrots, which is New Shamrock. New Shamrock. I'm going to use a number 6 angle brush, a number 6 on the carrots. It needs to be a little bit smaller. That space is a little bit smaller. So you are definitely going to need 2 coats on the tops of your carrots with the green, or possibly 3. It depends on which color you chose and how it ends up covering. Okay, so I'm ready for my second coat, and my first coat on the tops of this side are already dry, so I'm going to go ahead and come back over here and put my second coat on. Now, I do think that mine is only going to need 2 coats, so that's all I'm going to do. If your green ended up needing 3, go ahead and put 3 coats on. Okay, that's our carrots. And now we're going to move on to the tail. And for the tail, I'm going to use my number 12 again because it's a pretty large section to cover, and I only have to worry about that small part there that butts up against another piece. I'm using that Caribbean blue. And you're going to want 2 coats of this. So 2 coats. Okay. While we have our Caribbean blue out, we are going to do stripes in the ears. Now you can do stripes with like a round brush, a liner brush, or you can do it with a straight flat brush. Whichever one you choose, it has to be quite small. We want just small stripes going across, and it does not have to be perfect, okay? It does not have to be perfect. I am going to use a flat brush. I'm trying to find a small enough head flat brush. I am going to do a number 3. It's a number 3. And then I'm just going to come in and put stripes on. Now I only want to have to do this once, and they don't have to be perfect, okay? So get them the width that you want them the first time round. I don't want to have to come back and put a second coat on. So our paint will be a little bit thicker on these because we don't have to worry about second coats. Plus, I think it's important to remember that these don't have to be perfect, okay? They don't have to be perfect straight stripes, equally spaced, anything like that. There's no need to tape these off. Just set your brush down and swipe across. And I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to do the same thing on this side, except I have to be careful because my carrot tops are still wet. All right, that's it for that. We're going to put a second coat on our tail, and then we're going to go dry everything. So let's get that second coat put on our tail. Okay, so that's our second coat on pretty much everything. And I'm going to go dry mine so everything is completely dry. Once it's dry, I'm going to have a look and see if anything needs any touch up. And if it needs any touch up at that time, like if I find any of my green carrot tops needed to be filled in, or like you can see there's a little bit of a white spot right there, I'll take care of that. But otherwise, we're going to come back and we're going to start all the detailed and finished work. His eyes, his nose, all of our highlighting, our stripes on our carrots. We're going to start all of that stuff. All right, so let's get this dry. We'll be back in just a minute. All right, let's put some pink on our plate. And you just need a tiny little bit of pink. We're going to paint his nose. You're going to want a pretty small angle brush. I'm using a number 6. And as you can see, that's probably going to need 3, possibly 4 coats to cover over top of our gray paint. I probably should have thought about painting that white. I did not think about it, so we will just put on several coats. Okay, while we wait for that to dry, we are going to mix up some of, or actually we're not mixing, we're using it straight from the bottle. If you have to mix yours, now's the time. You're going to want a little bit darker of an orange. So if you don't have 2 shades of orange, you can take your current orange and mix a little bit of brown with it. Brown works well to give you like a pumpkin color. You do not need very much, just a tiny little bit there. And you need a rather small brush once again. I am going to use an angle brush. I'm going to use this, probably one of the smallest angle brushes that I have, which today is going to be a number 4. A number 4. It's my number 4 angle brush. And I'm going to make wide stripes across the carrot. Wide stripes. Now, because I'm doing wide stripes, I'm probably going to have to go in and put in 2 coats, even though it's not ideal. We're going to have to spend that extra time. It doesn't look actually bad the way it is right now, but All right, so I'm going to flip it around and I'm going to come back and I'm going to do a second coat. All right. Let's go back and work on our nose. Our nose needs 2 or 3 more coats there, so let's get another coat on our nose. Hopefully one more will do for that guy. All right, so while we're waiting for our nose to dry, I'm going to take, I already have a little bit of white on my plate and my green, and I'm going to take, and I'm just going to grab a little bit of green with the wrong end of a paintbrush, and I'm going to mix it into one side of my white over here. I don't need a ton of it. I actually want it. I want it a little bit darker. All right, that will do. All right, so I just want a little bit of a lighter green, not really, really light like you saw me start out with. So then I'm going to take a round brush. This is just number 3, and I'm going to roll it into that darker green that I made. And then I'm going to come in on the top, and I'm just going to, much like we would do with a paint marker, I'm just going to outline the green tops. So just do that rounded, follow the rounded pattern of the carrot top. Just like that. And then I'm going to come, and actually I think my green could have been just a little bit darker, but we're using it now. And I'm going to just do this with each one. Okay. And now we are going to do something very similar with the Caribbean blue. We are going to take the same brush. We're going to grab some white and mix in with your Caribbean blue just to change that shade just slightly. I actually would have preferred to go darker, but to darken the blue like that Caribbean blue for the color I'm thinking in my head, it would have been difficult to do with like a black or a brown. You would have almost had to have like a teal shade, so I didn't want to introduce yet another color to you guys, so just especially for a little bit of highlighting. So we're going to go ahead and just go later. All right, so we're just rolling our brush in that again, and we're going to come up and we're just going to do some outline swoops here. Don't overthink this, guys. Almost like we do when we do the white paint marker, except I wanted to get some blue in here first, a couple of shades of the tail. So we'll probably go over this with a white paint marker too, a thin one. Okay, and that's it. All right, rinse that brush out. And then let's go back and put one more coat on our nose. And hopefully that will be enough to cover this guy. All right, I think that's going to be good. We're going to go ahead and rinse our brush off. And then we're going to start all the fun stuff. This one was a pretty quick paint. Now you could give your bunny some little rosy cheeks there, but I don't think I'm going to do that. I don't know. We'll see how he turns out. Maybe he needs some rosy cheeks and some whiskers. Whiskers definitely. Rosy cheeks, we'll see. All right. I am going to grab my number 5. These are number 5s. I'm going to grab my number 5 Posca pen. And I'm going to outline it. All right. So I'm going to start with the bunny. And I'm going to start with the inside of his ears. Remember to turn your work however you need to. And then we're going to do his eyes, and we're just going to fill those eyes in. So trace around them. And then just fill them in. Okay, that's all of our black. We are going to go around the outside, but I usually use my jumbo for that. But before we do that, let's go and put in some little squigglies and some highlights and that kind of thing. So I am going to stay using this larger marker. Sometimes I switch over to a smaller one, but I'm going to stay with this larger one. And I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to do some curly cues. You see that? Sorry, I'm a little bit out. I'm gonna do the same thing on his butt right here, and then I'm gonna do one on his face. My marker's running out. I used it too much. Let's switch over to a new one. And I hate to go back over top, but there we go. All right, now let's see. I don't think we're gonna do too much other with the black here. Let's do the tail. Love that. And then I think we're going to switch over to our white. All right. We are going to outline with the jumbo, but let's do the white first. Where are my whites? Here's my whites. Now remember, you usually have to prime your whites because once they settle, once they settle, that it's becomes milky and not nice and full. Okay, I'm gonna do inside of my carrots. Do I want this? Actually, I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna switch over to my number. I think is it 7? It's the thin white, if I can find it. All right, I'm switching over to. It's a number 3. Sorry, guys. I'm switching over to my number 3 white. I just want a thin. These carrots are kind of small, so I don't want to overwhelm them with a 5. So let's just do the small one. And this is just what we're going to do right over top or close to the lighter green that we put in there. And then I'm going to do it on the tail as well. Now the only thing is I've already done black on the tail. So going over it with my white marker puts the black on my white marker. So then you have to work that off. Okay. And then some of your white might look a little gray, but that's okay. All right. We're going to go to the inside of the ears. And that's just this outer part right here. Okay. So it's still the inside of the ear, but we're going to do that. Don't overthink it. And then we're going to do the tops of his feet and the top of his butt. So let's come up here to the top of the butt. And we're going to get that. We're going to do the tops of his legs. And we're going to do the top of his feet. And we're going to do both feet. He's got his fronts and his rears. All right. And then let's give the top of the nose a little white accent. Okay. And little head, top of his head. Well, actually, let's bring that all the way down. Okay. Let's see, go in here. Sometimes you gotta look at it. You just gotta look and you gotta see where you need it. All right. I'm gonna do a little bit on the carrot, right like that, on both sides. And I think that's it. I still haven't decided whether or not I'm going to give him blush, but he is going to get whiskers. Here's the thing I'm worried about with giving him blush. That pink covers really hard. Is it going to cover enough? All right, I'm going to try it. You watch me first before you decide. I'm just using what pink is left on my plate because I don't want a whole lot of pink. I got to put just a tiny little bit more. Then I got too much. I'm using one of my pouncers. This one's about the size of a quarter. And I'm just going to do this real quick. I'm going to be prepared to take it off if I don't like it. Oh, it's actually not bad. I don't think I want too much more paint on my pouncer though. So, okay, that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to fill that in a second time. I'm just going to let that go. And then we got to let that dry before we can put the whiskers on. So let's take our jumbo. This is our number 7. And we're going to outline the whole entire thing. If you don't have a number 7, you can use your number 5. But I just put the tip of the marker half on and half off, and I go around the outside edge. I don't do this to every door hanger, but you can sometimes look at it and tell whether or not you need to do that. The carrots will be kind of hard to get into those little spaces, so just be careful. The carrot tops, sorry. And we'll finish this off right here. All right. And we have to do his whiskers. So let's get your cheeks dry. I'm going to go dry my cheeks and I'll be right back. Okay. Let's take our number 5 and we're just going to give him some short whiskers. And that's it. Okay, let's do our bow. He's cute. And our hanger. So you're going to need your scissors. You're going to make sure your scissors are sharp. And you're going to take your first ribbon and keep it folded in half and then fold it up like a taco. And then from the folded edge up and out to the corner, you're going to cut that off. Same thing on the other side. Keep it fold it up like a taco. And from the folded edge, cut up and out to the corner. And then for the next piece, same thing. Keep it folded in half, fold it up like a taco from the folded edge, up and out to the corner. And we're going to do that on this side. All right, we got our 2 pieces. Then we're going to make an X. And I just like, when you have 2 of the 2 different sizes of ribbons, I like to lay them like this. So one smaller ribbon on top of the larger ribbon. All right, and then we're going to take our large zip tie and wrap it around all of it and cinch it just a little at first. Okay, we're going to put that cinch to the back, and then we're going to make sure it's in the middle of the ribbons. And then we're going to make sure that these are folded up, not down. And then we're just going to scrunch it together. And then before you get it too tight, take that smaller zip tie, slide it under the loop of the bigger zip tie, and then tighten that big zip tie down all the way and trim it off. All right, now let's take our drawer hanger and our cording, our satin cording, and you're going to feed one end through each of those holes. Bring the ends together and up just like you do with your jute. Now, you didn't get too much satin hanger here, so I think I would just take and tie the knot in the end, an overhand knot there, okay? Pull the knot to the back side, and there's your hanger. And then you're going to take your ribbons And you'll wrap your ribbons around both pieces of your satin hanger just on one side. And then tighten that small zip down on both of those cords and trim the end of the zip off. And there you have it. All right, guys, thanks for following along. I hope you had a good time making this hanger. Listen, I appreciate you all. Have a good one.